up on Robin's Nest, we'll discuss and explore the myth of race and introduce you to the wonderful works of Children's Home and Family Foundation. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Welcome to Robin's Nest. Self-named after myself, I'm Robin Woods. Pleased to be here with my guest, Jefferson Fish, PhD, who will talk about the book he's written called The Myth of Race. So thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
And as I told you, and I'll tell the viewers, this was a pleasantly easy read. It is so interesting. It is so full of information.
Well, thanks.
And I'm so glad that we're able to have you on the show. And for the viewers who may or may not know Jefferson, he is a professor emeritus of St. John's University.
Correct. Where
you taught psychology.
Yep.
And the author of 12 books in total.
Yep.
Other than, The Myth of Race, which has just come out. We have an exclusive on it. And also, you lived in Brazil.
Yes. I guess the way I got interested in race was
Thank you. That was my next question.
Yes. I married an African-American anthropologist.
Dolores?
Dolores, yes, who studies Brazilian Indians. Okay. So from the time we got married, we knew we were going to be going to Brazil. And it took us a few years, but we were able to land jobs at 2 universities there. And then during the summer, which is our winter, we went off to spend some time with the tribe she'd been working with, the Crincati Indians. So while I was in Brazil, I got very interested in the fact that they have such a different concept of race from us.
That was fascinating. And please explain, or in the book when they talked about that was one of the most fascinating parts of the book, how Brazilians self-identify them, or decide what race they are.
Yeah, we have a very limited number of categories that we call race in the United States. It's because we have this concept called blood, which really means descent, so that in the way Americans think of it, if one parent is white and one parent is black, then all the children are black.
Well, I was told that genetically because of what's going on. Well, my family situation, that a German doctor who delivered my daughter said black is black. It doesn't matter. Your kid's not half white. Your kid's all black.
Yes, in the United States. But in Brazil, it's not like that. So if you took me and my wife and my daughter and my son-in-law and my 2 grandchildren, in the United States, I'm white and the other 5 are black, but in Brazil, we're 6 different things. And
that's amazing. 6 different things?
Yes, yes. In fact, one study in the Brazilian Northeast done by the people who do the census in Brazil asked people, what color are you? And they got 134 different answers, which is just sort of mind-boggling for Americans. And just as one example, one of the things Brazilians say is that the proof that Americans are racist is that we call people black who aren't black. And so that...
well, how could you be called black or white? I mean, but purely by skin tone? Or
well,
is
that's
it
the thing.
A class system? Because I think
it's both.
Brazilians seem to be class-driven.
That's right. Their racial prejudice is significantly less than Americans, but their class prejudice is significantly more. And because there's a high correlation that in general the darker people are poorer, they wind up getting treated badly, but for a different reason. At least that's how Brazilians think of it.
Well, there was something that you had quoted, like a conversation between 2 people when they were explaining, talking about a man, and they said, "Oh, isn't he black?" And the other person said, "No, he's very rich. He's white."
Oh, yes, they do have an expression in Portuguese that money whitens. In other words, when you've got so many possibilities, then they're very vague and they sort of blend into each other. And so people if they, let's say, once they have a college education and they're making a fair amount of money, they might actually think of themselves in lighter terms, and other people would use other terms to refer to them. But by the way, that sort of implies that people of mixed European and African background in Brazil would be on one dimension from the lightest to the darkest, and that's not the case. Because all of these facial features, for example, and hair form and hair color and so on, these all vary independently. If you were to go on a New York City subway and just sort of discreetly rate people, you would be able to see that you could have all the different skin colors matched with all the different hair colors and hair forms and eye colors and nose and lip forms and so on. And so that we assume that things go together that don't really, and they have names for people who have half white features and half black features, so that, for example, a Cabo Verde
stereotypical. You're talking about like hair and things like that?
No, for Brazil it's not a stereotype, it's a description. In other words, ancestry is irrelevant to what they call people in Brazil. It's based on what you look like. In the U.S., if someone is called black, then you know they have at least one parent who is classified as black.
It's blood, is it?
Right.
So it's not a case where, when you said something that was pretty significant, was that in the United States, this was good, and it would lead one to believe that, well, if you went to Japan, do they think differently? And
you'd
something
have to, right? You'd have to. I haven't studied Japan,
but
I
you
can.
did say something.
But I can tell you in Brazil that in Brazil, if there are 5 children, let's say you have 2 parents of intermediate appearance and they have 5 kids, those 5 kids you would use 5 different terms to describe them. And so when someone tells you, the term they use is tipu or cor, which is cognate with our words, type or color. When you know someone's tipu, you know what they look like, but you have no idea of what their parents look like or how their parents are classified. In the United States, when you know what they're called, you have an idea of how their parents are classified, but you have no idea of what they look like.
But when I was reading the book, I was thinking, like, you can self-identify independently. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you say, there's no such thing as race. Would I be considered delusional, or would it be an error? What if I decided to identify with a race that has nothing to do with blood or lineage?
In the United States? Yes, yeah. Well, you could say, I'm black, right? Just like that, right? I have a grandparent, right? And it doesn't look like it, but and people would believe you. But in Brazil, you said, I'm black, they'd think you're crazy. And because they can see what you look like. That's why they say, we say people are black who aren't.
Because I had told you an interesting, because I told you when my daughter was in 2nd grade, and they were doing something. We lived right near the United Nations, and the teacher lined them all up in front of the blackboard and told them what they were. You're black, you're this, you're Hispanic. And the huge blowback happened when she told all the Hispanic kids that they were black. But remember, the teacher was identified. No one asked her to, nor what is it welcome, which means just because someone looks a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that you're right the way you've the race you assigned to them, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, what she was doing was she was using American categories to classify them, but if they come from another culture, they might classify themselves rather differently.
Absolutely.
We even have that in the census. You know, it's a bizarre thing that...
I wanted to get into that because I've worked on Census 2000 and Census 210, and I had said something that I thought, especially for my children, that Census 210 was the most exciting for them. Because I said, I think you could just check off every box at one point,
well,
yes?
yes and no. What they did in the 2000 and 2010 census is that they separated the questions about Latinos from the question about race. So that, in other words, most Americans would say that discrimination against Latinos is a form of racial discrimination. But the census says that Latinos can be of any race. So that creates the paradox that Latinos are a race that can be any race. And in fact, one of the effects of that classification in the census is that there's a very large number of people who classify themselves as other. So that, and it's mainly Latinos. And again, Latino is an American classification. Latinos might not consider themselves Latinos. These are people who come from countries, some of which have a history of being at war with each other. But
I did want to mention, because it's piqued my interest. I'm sure the viewers are very, very interested in it. I wanted the viewers to know how they can get copies of the book, The Myth of Race, Jefferson M. Fish, Ph.D. It's available Watchung Booksellers.
Watchung Booksellers.
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. You can order it at any bookstore.
Amazon.com.
Yes, and it's also an ebook, and so it can be downloaded to the Nook or your iPad or
and you
whatever.
have JeffersonFish.com?
Is my website, jeffersonfish.com.
Okay, and then you said you have a Psychology Today blog?
Yes, I have a Psychology Today blog called Looking in the Cultural Mirror, and that has some additional posts on race. I did a recent one on sickle cell anemia, for example.
Okay, well, we hope that you pick up the book. A lot of great choice for a book club. We'll be giving further information about Jefferson Fish in the credits. I'm so glad you joined us. The book is wonderful, an interesting read. I hope you sell 1 million copies of the book.
Me too, and thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Great, and we'll be right back with our next guest from Children's Home and Family Foundation. Please stay tuned.
You can say with me, imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite, unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. One book can be the first little thing that helps to change a life. Book people unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Welcome back to Robin's Nest. I'm still Robin Woods, but I have two new guests here to talk to me. I have Jonna Parikh and Frederick Tawil from Children's Home and Family Foundation. Thanks so much for being with me. And
Thanks for having
us.
Thank you for having us.
And I'd like you to tell the viewers something about the foundation. So I'm going to start with you, Jonna, and let us know how this foundation came to be.
So the mission of the organization is to enhance the lives of high potential students or children who have economic hardship in the United States. So we provide mentoring and enroll them into extracurricular academic activities after school. And basically, it was a brainchild of ours in which we felt that by changing the life of a child, that can change the life of a family, in turn help society make social changes as well.
And you're marketing director.
Yes.
For
That's right.
CHFF, which is easier for me to say. And Frederick, you are executive director.
That's correct.
So other than being the grand poobah,
So Jonna came to me with the idea of helping children in general, and we thought it was something out there that could inspire, because in our own society, there's a lot of, if you come from an affluent family, you have the support system built in place to give to the children, to make sure that
you're talking about
they actually
enhancements, like
enhancements, yeah.
Jonah and I were talking
exactly.
about how a lot of children that we know they do this and they go for tutoring and they go
That's
for
right.
taekwondo and violin and t-ball and all that.
And so those families and children that are in economic duress and trying to make things, put things together, we want to help try to supplement those families to give them and sort of level the playing field, because there's a lot of talented children out there that would be able to give and to challenge them so that they can learn and give back to to society.
And you are based in Clifton, but you are reaching out to
We're
other towns?
We're based in Jersey City.
Oh, Jersey.
In Jersey City.
We're
See,
based in
I
Jersey
knew we had to
City.
fly you
Yes,
in on the cockpit
exactly.
today.
You're based in Jersey City,
Okay.
and we're reaching out to all these various towns in New Jersey and tri-state area. It's an organization that's working within the United States as well. So we have an education director.
We do. We have an education
Who,
director
we
in
give
California.
them a shout out. Who's your
Yes,
educator?
Beverly
Beverly Kerr.
Yep.
Okay.
Out in California.
Yeah.
That's
So
also
you're
helping
sort
guide
of
us.
telecommuting and
Yes.
and virtually
Absolutely.
meeting with each other.
Yes,
So
Yeah.
exactly.
So you are outside of New Jersey.
Oh, we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. See, that's
So it's-
something I didn't even know,
Yeah,
and we had met before the show, so I learned something.
Yes.
I wanted to get back to the fact that you're focusing on high potential.
Yes.
Explain exactly what that means. High potential. You're saying academically, IQ. You know,
Well,
what is it?
academically, basically 5% of your class. So based upon what the principal and the teachers feel, based upon your academic records and your testing.
By standardized tests.
Standardized
So
tests and
one
how you
assumes
perform.
they're third grade and up then?
Yes,
if
third
you have
grade
to
and
have
up. That's right.
apples
Yes.
to apples,
Yes.
correct?
Exactly right.
Okay, so it's at this point, it's not that people are approaching you, which may happen. Like, let's say a parent. I can see that might happen in the future.
Yes, and we don't have exposure right now to go to, and that's where we ask the principal's help to actually to find the children for us so we can target those.
Well, here's your chance.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, no,
there are viewers all over town, the country, and the world.
That's
so, right now you're dealing with, because I think you would need an official referral. Also,
Yes.
I had a question about one would have to go through the children's records,
Right.
correct? Their academic
Yes.
records, which only somebody within the school system would have access to.
Unless the parents can volunteer it through an application, which is what we want to try to build the process.
See, I think
coming out
that
through
would open the doors and
Yeah.
really make it easier for you
Yep.
rather than dealing with just the pure referral of a principal, which I believe also is working in conjunction with the teachers.
Yes.
They are.
Principals
Yeah.
very rarely are in the classroom.
Yes.
So you would deal with the teachers and maybe the guidance counselors,
Correct.
course.
the
Yes.
social workers. But I think the best way is to have the parents reach out to you directly. And that's the idea of having on Children's Home and Family Foundation today, to let our viewers know about it and to learn more, how to get involved, how to donate. So we're going to continue this conversation with Jerna and Frederick, and maybe we'll come up with some questions that we think that people might be asking. You'll let us know what's going on, and we'll talk about the NIA scholars
Okay.
when we come back.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Ready or not, here I come.
Take time to be a dad today.
I'm back again with Jerna and Derek, now that we're this close to each other, from Children's Home and Family Foundation, CHFF, as we call it in the business. And I wanted to ask you more about, once a child is identified, you do have your one young man that you're working with right now. Because, by the way, this foundation is very, very new. It's under a year old, correct?
Yes, it is.
So that's why spreading the word is a good idea. But tell us about your young man, Matthew, who is what you call a NIA scholar, correct?
Yes.
And explain why It's a NIA.
So the word NIA is a Swahili word, which means goal-oriented and purpose. So we thought all our children will be called NIA scholars. And once they're in our program, we're with them pretty much till adulthood. And we're committed to mentoring them and developing their skill sets. But going back to Matthew, Matthew is a wonderful little boy. He's in 4th grade. He's 9 years old. And he was identified by the principal and his teachers as very high potential. And basically, his situation is very unique. He has an economic need as well.
Okay.
So
Which is delineated by federal standards.
yes,
correct?
and then yes, and we look at situations as well. So he was basically he's high potential since he was in 1st grade. Very dedicated, very determined. He has a fire within him that's like unseen. So that was seen when he was only like 5 or 6 years old by the principal.
Okay. So how
So
are
he's
you helping
driven.
him when you say
So-
get a leg up or an
Yes.
enhance,
So
which is already what is known as a gifted child, correct?
a high potential child.
Okay.
We like to call him high potential. So the way we're helping him is we enrolled him into a program called Kumon, and he has been taking enhanced math classes to further enhance his abilities.
So it's the opposite of what people might think for some children. You know, the commercials you see, you know, saying it and doing it, or something else, and my David is failing, or something. This is a child that is probably going ahead, maybe by
It's
grade
challenging
level.
them,
Yeah.
right? This
So
is
he
what we're
doesn't get
trying to
bored.
do, so he doesn't get bored. And then there's kids in the communities, especially in those challenged communities, that need this in their communities, so that the children can prosper and find new ways to let out their energy and to really be creative in their own way, and then hopefully find new direction for themselves outside of their current schools. And with Matthew's case, he plays the piano now. He's doing karate. He's doing a few things on his own, and we thought this is a perfect way to start. Somebody who would fit into our program.
So Kumon is just one way you might
That's
help
right.
them, because when you say piano is also wonderful for them to, you know, express themselves and learn things. There's art, things like. So you are planning maybe to
Our focus right now is purely academics.
Okay.
So that is, our focus. So we help, the families. We sit down with them and say, okay, this is our best suggestion, and we work with them. And he has a love of learning. So we wanted to make sure all our NIA scholars have a love of learning, and we need to make sure that we keep that essence in them. They do not lose that essence just because they have an economic situation. Because there are many times that because of his economic situation, he knows he is, they're tight on money and whatever the case might be. We don't want to lose
It's
that.
important that we find children who are disciplined, because you mentioned that the IQ, kids can be very smart, but if they don't find the influence of a program like this to help them in life, and help as we want to make sure that we guide them through life, that we want to offer a true mentoring program to bring them to that next
Well,
level.
I'm coming out of the experience in New York, where they call it the gifted and talented, where you must test to get in based on IQ. But we found the proof is in the pudding, and along with working with CHFF, there's a lot to be said about parental involvement.
That's
I
right.
think to a child, a high potential, very high functioning child, has the support of a parent who's active in their education. And that might be another way that the child is succeeding. But it would be interesting, since you said you'll follow Matthew and other children
That's right.
as your organization gets, your foundation gets better known, into adulthood. Because I find it important to see whether the high potential students do end up, you know, really doing well in college or whatever
That's
it
right.
is that they do. I've told my son, you know, you didn't have to go to college. You could be the best plumber in the world, buy a franchise. Just be excellent at whatever it is.
And give back to
And
your
you could-
community.
And what is it that we and the viewers can do to help other than spread the word about CHFF?
One thing I'd like to just go over the guidelines for the economic duress is what we do. We try to follow the federal guidelines for HUD, the housing,
Okay.
where is that they try to take the counties and or the metropolitan areas median income, and they take 80% of that median income is what qualifies them for HUD housing for low income. So these are guidelines. These aren't strict. They're not strict for us as we look at every child and every family situation, but that's how we try to qualify for people for being
But
part
we
of our
have
foundation.
to stop now, believe it or not.
Yeah.
The time has flown by. Well, I believe. And your website is?
chffoundation.org.
My thanks to my guests, Jefferson Fish, PhD, author of The Myth of Race, sitting right next to me, Jarna and Frederick of CHFF, Children's Home and Family Foundation. It was great having another new segment of Robin's Nest. Thanks for being with us. Keep watching. I'll be watching you.